This is George Zeller of Cleveland. Listen to the International Radio Report every Sunday morning at 10:30 on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Welcome to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. It is our show for Sunday, January the 16th, 2022. I am here with Jill. My name is Sheldon, and we thank you for joining us. If you would like to reach us, you can do so by email. radioreport@yahoo.com is our email address. Our show is live streaming and archived at ckut.ca. That is the CKUT website of the radio station here in Montreal. And we have a Facebook group, International Radio Report. We want to welcome some new members again this week. Welcome to Sandra, Patrick, Dean, Robert, Anthony, and Sully joining us. We're quickly closing in on the 700 member mark. We're at 697. So if you have not joined yet, and if you are the next of 3 people to join, you'll be the 700th member of our Facebook group. Lots of great information on that page. We do invite you to go take a look at it. We also have our show available for you on YouTube. It is youtube.com/International Radio Report. We have 555 subscribers there. That allows you to go and listen to the show whenever you like. Go back and listen to archived editions, as well as some special editions that only appear on our YouTube channel. So lots of ways for you to find the International Radio Report. We have a lot of different stories from Canada, the US, and some international stories from around the world. We start off today's show with a story from Cape Breton in the province of Nova Scotia. The headline is, "Son of former Nova Scotia fiddling premier now heads new Cape Breton online radio station that plays all local music." This comes from Ryan McDonald of CTV News Atlantic. Even before he became Nova Scotia's 26th premier, it was well known that Rodney MacDonald could play the fiddle. Now the 24-year-old son of the former fiddling premier is picking up on some of his father's passion for Celtic music. Ryan MacDonald is manager and director of CBFM, a new online radio station that plays all Cape Breton music all the time. People ask what genre of music the station is, Ryan MacDonald said. Is it folk? Is it fiddle music? Is it Celtic? Is it this? Is it that? He answers, it's Cape Breton. The radio station, which launched in December of 2021, is a passion project for father and son. While he's the on-air host and station director, MacDonald said his dad offers plenty of advice. He's always listening, MacDonald said, being like, you should play more music of this fiddler or that fiddler. He's always giving me tips on what I should do with the music. MacDonald adds the hope is for CBFM to eventually make the move to the FM dial, and that plans are in the works for an all-Gaelic sister station. So the call sign that he's using is a little odd because CB is used by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation in Canada. So I'm not quite sure why he chose that, I guess, for Cape Breton FM. But if he did get a radio station, I don't think he'd be allowed to use the CBFM call letters anyways. But that's nice to hear that he's promoting Cape Breton music. And if you're listening from around the world somewhere and you're not familiar with it, check it out. Cape Breton is in the Canadian province of Nova Scotia, and it has a lot of Gaelic connection, a lot of Scottish background immigrants that came to Canada that settled in the Atlantic province of Nova Scotia. So you can check that out. We'll get a link to the internet station and post it up on our on our Facebook page, actually.
Now we have a news that we were talking about how things look like the Cold War is coming back in some way. Russia that continues campaign to silence media. This is by our Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, via Radio World. While meetings take place between the United States, Russia, and other organizations to discuss Russia's aggressive posture along Ukraine's borders, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty says Russia is continuing a campaign to silence independent media and drive RFERL out of the country. In concert with the threat posed by the 100,000 soldiers Russia has deployed along Ukraine's borders, said RFERL, President Jamie Fly in a press release, Russia's bullying actions against independent journalism have also intensified. RFERL will continue to provide the Russian people with the news and information they need to hold their government accountable. RFERL said that on December 3rd, 4 current and former RFERL journalists were named foreign agents, and on December 30th, Russia named 2 more RFERL journalists along with others as individual media foreign agents. The organization said this designation makes the journalists subject to onerous and invasive financial reporting requirements and forces them to add lengthy, legally mandated labels of their foreign agent status to electronic communications or posted content. These additions bring the number of individuals named to the Justice Ministry's media foreign agent list to 75, and another 36 media organizations are also labeled as foreign agents. RFERL said due to its refusal to submit to the labeling provisions, Russia's communications regulator has issued another series of violation protocols against RFERL, the 8th since the beginning of last year. RFERL now faces a total of some 1 billion rubles, that's 13.4 million US dollars, in fines, which it continues to fight in Russian court. It has also filed suit with the European Court of Human Rights over the law. So this is definitely the first showing the importance of how these broadcasts from shortwave transmitters or powerful medium wave transmitters that can actually cross borders also is important, because Russia is getting very complex at the moment, and that freedom of speech and having the right news is a tough thing to get in Russia right now. So, of course, they're trying to shut down or find ways to silence a lot of people here. And it sounds like the Cold War again.
Yeah, it does. I mean, these broadcasts were so important in changing people's views and changing the whole scene during the Cold War and after the Cold War. And the stations have continued to broadcast, but now the pressure is being put on them, in particular by Russia. And as you said, Russia is getting a little bold these days, and
Yep.
there's issues going on with a lot of the former Soviet republics. And I think these broadcasts are probably more important than others. And I guess the history is there that the Russians see what RFERL was able to do in the past.
Oh, yeah.
And by trying to make it more difficult for them now, probably feel that it won't have the same impact that it did previously. So this is a story that'll certainly need more monitoring.
Yeah, for sure.
To see how it all comes into, how the whole thing works out in the end.
Yep.
It's really quite odd. Our next story is something called the Radio Daze podcast, and it's launched by Clear Media Network. This comes from via Radio Online. Clear Media Network premieres a new industry podcast entitled The Radio Daze, and that's spelled D-A-Z-E or D-A-Z-E, the Radio Daze podcast. The program is hosted by company president of programming and operation, Mark McCrae, who is also an award-winning morning personality. The podcast is all about real stories in the radio and record industry and all the crazy, wacky, and funny stuff that has happened to all of us. Each episode will feature true stories from radio personalities, owners, managers, record representatives, and anyone associated with the two industries. Our radio and record industry needs a fun podcast, one that reminds us about the fun and funny things we've experienced. One of my favorite things to do when talking to my colleagues is hearing their crazy and interesting radio stories, said McCrae. This podcast will have you smiling like there's a coat hanger in your mouth. The Radio Daze podcast is premiering this week with 3 episodes. Episode 1, Bus Ride from Hell, which is currently available. Episode 2, Try Not to Get Shot with Tony Scott goes live on Wednesday. And episode 3, Drunk Preachers and Plane Crashes with Smokey Rivers, premieres Friday. New episodes of the Radio Daze podcast will be available every Wednesday. The podcast will launch with 3 episodes during its premiere week. So this sounds like it's going to be fun.
Yes, it does.
It's kind of lifting the curtain on what goes on behind the scenes in the radio industry and the record and recording industry. So we'll find the link for this of where you can get these podcasts. And I think whether you're in the business or not, just a fan of radio, I think we'll probably find these podcasts interesting to listen to.
Yeah, and it's always fun to have the behind-the-scenes funny stories of things that happened that we might not know about.
We've had some of those funny things happen here on the show over all the years we've been here too. So I think we know where they're coming from with some of these. But the commercial radio business is a whole other game.
Yep.
So I'm sure there's been lots of strange stuff going on. Just the names of those first 3 episodes will give you an indicator of what you might be hearing.
So there's a new Seattle online radio station that elevates Indigenous music from around the world. This is by Graham Johnson, KIRO 7 News. A new internet radio station based in Seattle is indigenizing the airwaves, elevating native music from the Pacific Northwest and around the world. Daybreak Star Radio Network launched last summer as a project of the Daybreak Star Indian Cultural Center in Discovery Park. To have a whole radio station dedicated to Native Americans, Indigenous people, is monumental, said David Hilaire, a longtime DJ from the Lumi Nation known as DJ Big Rez. I want the Daybreak Star Radio Network to be recognized, respected, understood as the #1 Native American radio station internationally, said Program Director Harris Francis. The station invites Indigenous artists to send in their music. Station manager Sherry Steele, a member of the Peoria Indians of Oklahoma, hears from people all over. We just got in some instrumental death metal from Ecuador. We've had some Sami Nation members reach out from Norway, Steele said. Daybreak Star Radio plays it all, from hip-hop to storytelling. The mission is to get the voices of Native artists and musicians out to the world to show the world we're not extinct and there is Native music being made all the time, Steele said. So this is definitely some really interesting stuff, and it's always cool to hear, all the diversity that our world has in, arts and media.
Yeah, I think too, if stations don't start picking up this music, it's very hard for these artists to get their music played anywhere, particularly on any sort of commercial radio. So at least we're seeing here that someone's making use of online radio to get different material out to the public around the world, and that is the reach of the internet online stations.
Yep.
That they can reach just about anywhere. So I think this will be interesting to check out. We'll put a link up for you to Daybreak Star Radio, and wow, death metal music from Ecuador.
From Ecuador.
That's pretty wild. But they should get a lot of different styles of music from many, many different countries around the world.
So what's happening with our sun? Well, it was rather quiet, but there were a few sunspot groups on the sun. There was some solar wind that did disrupt a little bit the shortwave propagation at times this week, but overall, things were rather quiet. Now, this might change, actually, as there is a solar flare that happened that is almost at the X-class level, and it comes from a spot. It's like on the edge of the sun. It's actually coming into view, so we might be in for a pretty active week with solar activity. The solar flux is around 106, and the sunspot number 111 at the time. K-index is quiet right now at 1, but there is also a coronal hole that will send some solar wind flowing from that hole to reach the Earth on January 16th, 17th. So that might degrade propagation a little bit. But with that increase in activity, it's going to be definitely interesting to look at what's happening with the sun and the propagation that's going to come with it also at the same time. And the best way to really see and particularly hear what's happening is to turn on the radio.
This is Peter Laws in Norman, Oklahoma. On the air since 1987, you're tuned to the International Radio Report, 30 minutes of radio about radio every Sunday morning on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal and live streaming around the globe at ckut.ca.
We move next to the United Kingdom with a story tied into children and schools, which is quite interesting. The headline is UK radio station sending our voices into space. This comes from James Gray of the UK Express. A radio station will be transmitting the voices of children to the stars as part of a new idea called Mission Transmission. Next month, Fun Kids Radio, a national children's and pop digital radio station, will be sending a radio program into space. The idea has been labeled Mission Transmission, with the live event scheduled to be held at the Royal Observatory, Greenwich, at 7 p.m. Monday, February the 14th. The transmission will be beamed to 10,000 of the Earth's closest stars. Furthermore, the broadcast will be sent out as a radio signal, which is a type of light wave capable of traveling at the speed of light. The station states it will be the first radio program ever sent into deep space. We have something to say about that in a minute, but going on though, as part of the idea, it is encouraging children to send in their submissions to be included within the program. With parents' or guardians' permission, children can answer the following questions in their own words. Who are you? Who or what do you love? What would you like to do when you're older? And do you have any questions for aliens? Although not every submission will make the final cut, anyone who does enter is assured that they will have their name sent into space alongside the radio program. Overall, the program will be 30 minutes in length and feature music that's been recorded to uniquely mark the occasion. In addition, it will include extracts of interviews with experts talking about what life on Earth and elsewhere in the universe might be like. Mission Transmission is the idea of the station's producer, Adam Stoner, who said he has drawn inspiration from the advancement of space exploration in the past 12 months. We hate to tell you guys, but all radio signals are sent out into space.
Yep.
And they do keep going on to infinity. Somewhere out there, millions of light years from us today, somebody might be listening to our actual program.
Yep, and there's even more than that because there's actually been some real intentional deep space programming, or if you want, I believe from the Arecibo telescope, they had sent the Beatles song across the universe with something like 1 megawatt of power towards the Big Dipper. So maybe an alien somewhere is enjoying a Beatles song right now. I don't know.
You never know. But it's a unique idea, though, what they're doing with this station, of getting the kids involved, maybe understanding a little bit more about radio and how you can use radio to send transmissions like this.
I think this really is nice for two reasons: bringing an interest in radio, but also sparking an interest in astronomy. So, these are beautiful things to dabble with, and maybe later on it's going to change their lives. Maybe they'll be working in some radio field or astronomy field or be a scientist. It's always cool to have these.
Yeah, again, we'll find the link for you on about Fun Kids Radio, and this will be coming up on Valentine's Day, the special transmission Monday, February the 14th.
So we have the RTBF that plans to move from FM. This is by T. Carter Ross, Radio World. Under a new strategic plan approved by its board of directors in December, RTBF, Radio-Télévision Belge de la Communauté Française, plans to wind down its FM and DVB-T signals over the next 5 years. RTBF is a public service broadcaster for Wallonia, the French-speaking half of Belgium. The new 5-year plan replaces the Vision 2022 or Vision 2022 initiative, or the RTBF, adopted in 2016. The new plan places an emphasis on the digital transition, streaming, and younger audiences. According to reports in the French-language newspaper Le Soir, the RTBF board worked with consultancy Deloitte to plan for 3 scenarios: the migration of audiences away from the traditional platforms, the difficulty of procuring original content, and increasing competition in a globalized media market. As part of adapting to the expected changes, RTBF would shut down digital terrestrial television signals in favor of IPTV and move its FM services to DAB+ by 2027. The latest Ipsos Maradio survey, as of year-end 2020, 80% of people in French-speaking Belgium were familiar with DAB+, and some 20% of people use a DAB+ receiver. The same survey found that about half of all radio listening in Wallonia was done via digital platforms, DAB+, streaming, or digital television. So this is kind of interesting. We see that most people seem to know about digital forms of broadcasting. Once again, is that a good idea? I think, it's moving ahead for the future. Broadcasting is trying to find its way in new formats and streaming. And here they're getting into a younger audience, as they say. So, of course, younger audiences tend to use online streaming and digital forms a lot more. So this is going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, the fact that there's only 20% of people right now using the receivers is something they're going to have to address.
Yep.
They have obviously some time to do this. The conversion, in particular for the FM radio services, 2027. So you've got 5 years to go. So there's going to be a lot of work to be done to get people ready for that conversion to take place. And it's nothing new. It's happened in a few countries already, and there's probably more coming. And we keep running into stories about this. So haven't really seen much of it here in North America yet, but we'll see whether it happens or not.
It seems to be really much more aggressive in European countries right now.
And we next move on to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where a radio station has been shut for airing quote-unquote political content. This comes from BBC Monitoring via Mike Cooper and Glenn Hauser's World of Radio. The Observatory of Press Freedom in Africa has expressed surprise at the sudden interruption of broadcasts of Radio Mwana Maboka, a private station broadcasting in Lisala, the capital of the Mongala province in northwestern DRC. Radio Mwana Maboka was switched off on January the 5th by Colonel Antoine Masirika, acting provincial commissioner of the Congolese National Police in Mongala, following an order from Serge Mungulu, the provincial governor. The senior police officer immediately went to the headquarters of the radio station, where he ordered the staff to interrupt the broadcast of the topical issues program on the contribution of the people of Lisala to the construction of water pipes. The journalists were briefly detained at the studios and accused of regularly broadcasting political programs in violation of a banning order from the provincial interior minister. They were released after the intervention of Emmanuel Ibengi, the provincial minister of finance, who is acting in the media docket. These actions are likely to undermine the right to inform and be informed guaranteed by Democratic Republic Congolese legislation and international legal instruments on human rights. Consequently, the OLPA demands the immediate and unconditional reopening of Radio Mwana Maboka.
One of the things for sure is that with the past of the DRC and all that happened there, I guess they might want to control in order to try to keep a peaceful country as much as possible. But also at the same time, the same thing happening in so many countries around the world, trying to shut down the voices that might actually want to say it as it is and talk a little bit more about things that are ignored. And often shut down by governments.
It's kind of ironic that countries that tend to have the word democratic in their name seem to be the countries that are maybe the least democratic.
Yeah.
And I think this is another case of it, sadly. But hopefully, organizations like this, Observatory of Press Freedom in Africa, are monitoring situations in countries like this and trying to at least keep the voices being heard on the radio.
Yep.
You need different viewpoints and different types of programming to get out there to the public. Unfortunately, sometimes other groups don't agree with that.
So do you mean to tell me that the German Democratic Republic was not free speech?
I guess not. And then who else do we have? We have the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea, is it called?
Yes.
It's kind of weird how they've adopted that democratic name in their country names. But anyways.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to wrap up today's show with, as we usually do, with a couple of upcoming ham radio contests.
So we have the BARTG RTTY Sprint, 12 Zulu January 22nd to 12 Zulu January 23rd. It's sponsored by the British Amateur Radio Teledata Group, bands 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10 meters, and the mode is RTTY.
And there's a large event coming up. It is the North American QSO Party, single sideband edition, 1800 January 22nd to 0559 Zulu January 23rd. It's sponsored by the National Contest Journal. The object is to work as many North American stations as possible during the contest period. The bands are 160 through 10 meters, and as we said, it is the SSB portion of the North American QSO Party, so phone operations. If you're a ham that's looking to try to work all states, for example, this is a great contest to do that in, because there will be stations pretty much from all of the states filling up the ham bands. So regardless of where you are, you can work North American stations and Canadian stations as well in this. So it's a big contest. It runs for the weekend. So a good opportunity, and the bands will no doubt be full with SSB signals.
Yeah, for sure. And so we are out of time.
Yeah, we wrap it up once again this week. We thank you for tuning in, and we will do it all again next week. In the meantime, we do invite you to go check out our Facebook page, International Radio Report. We'd love to have you join up there. You can send stories to us there. You can read the stories that we talk about here on the show, other stories that don't make it to our 30-minute show, and you can interact with other members of the group there as well. And if you like to listen to the show again, or if you are listening to us at your leisure, you can do that most easily through our YouTube channel, International Radio Report. That does it for us this week. Have a great week. We'll talk to you again next Sunday on the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Bye-bye.
조선중앙방송입니다.
This is Voice of Korea.
This is Voice of Korea.